our presenters for this morning, and they're going to speak in the order that I call them. So as I call your name, if you'll take your place at the table, please. Colonel Todd Turner, U.S. Army Garrison. Chief John Thomas, North Augusta Public Safety. Chairman Gary Dunker, Aiken County Council. Dr. Sean Alford, Aiken County Public School District. And Mayor Bob Pettit, City of North Augusta. Let's give these folks a round of applause.
So good morning. First, I'd like to just say thanks again to the members of the panel and the Chamber for providing Fort Gordon an opportunity once again to participate in this event this year. So right up front, I just got to say that it has been a tremendously prosperous year for Fort Gordon. So my goal this morning, similar to what we did last year, is really talk about two things. Provide an update on our mission, and then second, talk about the transformation and growth occurring across Fort Gordon. So starting with the mission. The Cyber Center of Excellence converted from the Signal Center of Excellence just about 3 to 4 years ago. And so what that meant was we built a cyber school, and so that school is up and running. We have added, instead of focused on signal information technology, we now include cyber and electronic warfare. So this past year, we actually published our first field manual covering all signal, cyber, and electronic warfare operations under Field Manual 3-12. So that tells the Army on how we are going to integrate those functions across the force. So that is the school, the proponency at Fort Gordon, that sets the standard, trains all the soldiers from the schoolhouse, and issuing that doctrine out on how we're going to fight in cyberspace. So we're really proud about getting that accomplished. We also have a cyber battle lab that conducted its second annual Cyber Quest this past July, and that is where we essentially take industry partners from the local area and across really the country, where they're brought in to demonstrate cutting-edge technology and innovative solutions for any current technological challenges that we have in cyberspace. So we continue to look to grow that. We hosted, we support AFCEA TechNet over here at the Marriott, right across the river. This year we had over 3,300 attendees and over 200 industry partners. So that annual conference we continue to see grow. In addition to all these efforts, the Cyber Center of Excellence began work on their future campus. So as you know, the existing Signal campus that was built in the 60s, about 50, 60 years old. Average age of each of those academic buildings is about 42 years old. So we've started work on that, and Winship Hall is the first building that is about halfway through renovation. That is in progress. We have a $99 million, the first major military construction is $99 million. That building, last week we had the kickoff design meeting, so it's in design this year and it'll break ground next year. And that's one of 4 major military construction projects that we'll see between now and 2025. The total bill is just over $900 million to either renovate or build new. In the next 7 years, over $900 million to build a new cyber, signal, and electronic warfare campus. So that is a significant investment that the Army is making in Fort Gordon. So the Signal School, which it has done for many decades, continues to train over 12,000 soldiers per year in everything from tactical radios to satellite communication. We also train over 50 international partners from around the world, as well as our other services in satellite communication. So our cyber school, which is our newest school, it's only 3 years old. The first year we trained 30 lieutenants. 15 of them were from West Point, 15 of them from ROTC. we now are up to about 500 average student load coming through in just 3 years. So we went from a very small number. And so what was significant is we added 10 secret classroom facilities, because in cyberspace we need to train in classified rooms. Those are secret compartmental information facilities, otherwise known as SCIFs. So the pacing item for how fast we can grow that cyber school is how many SCIF spaces we have. We started with 3 classroom SCIFs, and we now have 13. And so we believe that we'll have about 1,000 students per year going through the cyber school by 2021 as we build out the new campus. So as SCIF space comes online, we'll add students. Additionally, we are working right now on active stationing action to move the electronic warfare school that's at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, which has a cadre of about 20, and they train about 500 soldiers a year in electronic warfare. That falls underneath the cyber school, and we're actively pursuing movement of that school from Fort Sill, Oklahoma to Fort Gordon in 21-22 time period. So with respect to transformation and growth. So Fort Gordon is one of the only Army installations out of the 75 around the world that continues to be growing. As you know, under some of the resource-constrained environment over the last 5 years, the Army did a drawdown of about 1/3 of its force, from about 1.3 active guard and reserve, to just under 1 million soldiers total. So we were one of the only installations growing over the past 5 years. On average, we had 1,000 soldiers, sailor, airmen, Marines, or Department of the Army civilians come to Fort Gordon over that time. So 25% growth. We believe that that brought in some 6,500 family members, 2,100 school-aged children. So everybody asked me what growth is still out there. The one big organization that has not yet moved, that will move in 2020, 2021, is Army Cyber Headquarters. That is the Army's operational headquarters, commanded by Lieutenant General Nakasone, and he currently operates 8 facilities around the National Capital Region. So you can imagine if you had a business that was split, your headquarters was split into 8 different buildings, that you don't necessarily have all the efficiencies that you want. So their headquarters broke ground in November of 16 last year. It's a 2-year build, 1-year fit out with furniture and IT equipment. And it is co-located with the NSA complex on Fort Gordon. And so those 1,200 employees, 1,300 family members, and some over 400 school-aged children, we believe will move here in 2021. So that will be our next big growth. We currently have 10 major construction projects ongoing. I already mentioned Army Cyber Headquarters. Later on this morning, and forgive me if I've got to step out, but I've got 2 ribbon cuttings back to back this morning. We have a command support center that we just came online, where we have a lot of, is a large facility. It was formerly the Post Exchange, so it was our shopping center. We've now turned it into our civilian personnel, our contracting office, our legal office, our inspector general. So all kinds of agencies that support the entire installation are all co-located in one facility. So we're excited about that. We're going to cut the ribbon on that this morning. Additionally, we have a 600-bed advanced individual training barracks that we'll do the ribbon cutting on later this morning. So that's just part of taking care of our soldiers, our all-volunteer force, that we will give them the appropriate barrack space to live and work out of and train in when they're at Fort Gordon going to school. So we're excited about that. We have 17 new major construction projects for this FY. One of the biggest ones I think to mention is the access control point number 6. It'll be a new gate that's going to go in on Gordon Highway. That's going to break ground in March of 18 and be a 2-year build. So we're excited about that. And in closing, I just want to say thanks once again for the opportunity to come out. And we are very blessed to have the partners that we do in this region. Very grateful for all the support that you give us each and every day. Not only those on the installation, but our families that live in this community. All right, thanks a lot.
Good morning. Again, thank you for having us today. A couple things I want to talk about. There's basically 3 points I want to make, and one is that you're visiting or living in a very safe city in North Augusta, and we're very proud of that. I challenged my folks a couple years ago about being involved and being engaged in the community, and obviously we're seeing some of those dividends. It's paying off for us. So we are a safe city, and we pride ourselves on those things. I briefly want to talk about a couple things that we've accomplished this year that I'm very proud of. When we talk about engaging the community, we will make sure they feel that we are a part of this community and the community is a part of us, and we support one another. And I can tell you, I've lived in other parts of the state, I've policed in other parts of the state, and we're in a unique situation. We do have some challenges ahead of us, but obviously we're going to tackle those with the mentality that we can overcome some of these challenges. One of the things that we talk about at public safety is making sure our people feel comfortable, making sure they understand. There's bad things that happen across this country every day. And one of the things that we did recently was to, in light of what's happened in Texas, was to invite our pastors to a conference. I don't know if you've seen that or not, but we had a great turnout. 2 days of us sitting and talking to pastors, local pastors, some from across the river and some from all areas of Aiken County. But one of the things we looked at is when we talk about Texas and how horrific that actually was, is that it's gotten to the point where it's pretty sad when we have to have a conference about violence in churches. I'll be very honest with you, very candid. But unfortunately, we do. So what I asked the pastors to do was to come in and look and think about a plan that we can help them with, a plan that we can look at and walk through their churches if need be, so that those people feel safe. And so we did that, and with overwhelming success. We had some good rapport. We talked through some things, and if you can only imagine what happened in Texas could happen around the country everywhere, and we have to prepare for those types of things. The entrances and the exits we looked at. We also looked at putting some people on the ground and walking through those areas, and so it was a very beneficial thing for us to talk to those people, make sure they understand that we need to know what your plan is and you need to know what our plan is, so that in the event it happens, that we'll be able to survive this event. So very graciously they accepted that challenge, and we had some great dialogue with those people, and they understand much better. We're still continuing to do that. It's very fresh. We did some back in the 1st of December. The mayor was there and welcomed everybody. And it was a great event that went off well. The other thing I'm very proud of is in November we went to Jacksonville, Florida, and we accepted the CALEA national accreditation in the city of North Augusta for public safety. Our first, by the way. We've had state accreditation, but now we are nationally recognized as a nationally accredited agency, which brings a lot of weight and helps us a lot, but it also holds us to a different standard than the average police department or the average public safety department. And so the benefits of CALEA are tremendous. It saves us, it makes us, puts us on this pedestal, if you will, with other departments around the country. There's standards that we have to meet. We have to make sure that those standards are met. Those policies have to be reviewed annually. And so it's a great day for us. And I'm very proud because what we did, this is a 3-year process. We started 2 years ago. And we finished it in 2 years, which typically takes 3 years. So my hat's off to my staff and my guys and girls that did an awesome job. It was a privilege for me to represent the city of North Augusta and walk across the stage in Jacksonville, Florida, and receive national accreditation. So you can also thank the community for supporting us in what we do. This is a great place to work. It's a fantastic place to live, and so we're just proud to be able to be a part of that. The challenges we have, and the Colonel alluded to it, with what's going on in North Augusta, which is the growth that we see coming. There's obviously going to be a lot of people and crowds around the river. We know that. We know the traffic situation is going to increase. We have to put a person or some persons in that region. We see the growth at Exit 5. We see some of the call volume increasing, and so we have to prepare for some of those challenges. I will tell you that in Aiken County, and we looked at some statistics, that we're in the top 10 when it comes to fatalities in this county, and that's frightening. Here in North Augusta recently, we've had the unfortunate situation of working some of those fatalities, and what causes that is obviously increased traffic volume, people not paying attention to what they need to be paying attention to sometimes when we're in the vehicles, but it's a dangerous situation that we have to monitor. And one of the things we're going to look at doing through the state is hopefully gaining some grants so that we can put some more officers on the street, some more resources that we can use as a traffic safety officer, or as a DUI detection officer. So those are things that are on the horizon that obviously we need to look at and think about as we see the future growth. Council will be briefed on that, and that's something that we can take into a future, because those 3 years are virtually free if we receive the grants. Aiken just received some traffic officers that they have put to work, and so we're looking forward to hopefully capturing some of those grants that are available out there to us. But the challenge will continue to come in our direction because of the growth that we see here. The final thing I want to talk about is the new fire station that we're looking at building. We've acquired the land. We need the fire station. Right now, as ISO tells us, we're serving where we are recently and currently most of the river, which we need to move away from that river, and we need to be in a 5-mile radius of where we need to be in the center of the city. So that's on the horizon. If you know anything about ISO, that means that obviously that's what controls your insurance rates. And so we want to make sure that we're providing that to the citizens of North Augusta. So we do have some challenges ahead of us. We have a great council to work for, a great mayor who supports us 110%, and a community that really cares about public safety. Thank you very much.
Well, good morning, North Augusta. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Gary Bunker. I'm the newly elected chairman of the Aiken County Council. I had served previously for 2 terms until stepping off in 2012, never dreaming that I might be back, but then when Chairman Young somewhat unexpectedly announced that he was going to run for the State House in a special election, the opportunity opened, and as events transpired, here I am. So it's great to be here in North Augusta, and I do want to congratulate the community on their Christmas parade this past Sunday. It was the first time I had been in the North Augusta Christmas parade, and let me tell you, that was a lot of fun, and all of those who are responsible for it deserve a good round of applause because it was a fabulous event and really showed off the city. So thank you all so very much for that. Well, I've been on council now for about a month, so my comments are more, you might say, first impressions about being back. I think being on council for a while and then being off for 4 years and coming back again is a little bit like watching a soap opera and then coming back after 4 years, and you realize it's still called the same thing. Some of the characters are still the same. The situations are, yeah, you still recognize the situations, but there's still a little bit of catch-up to do on that. So I'm sort of in the catch-up mode on the county council. But a couple of the things that have been very helpful to me on council is that we have 2 councilmen from this area who I worked with previously on council, and I look forward to reestablishing great working relationships, or Chuck Smith, who I don't think is here this morning, but Sandy Haskell from the area, and that really helps giving me a good county-wide perspective. Because that's one thing you have to realize, that when on county council, Aiken County is about 1,000 square miles. You know, we always say it's about the size of the state of Rhode Island, and it's real easy to get a parochial perspective on things. And when you have 8 different members from North Augusta to Wagner, Aiken, Midland Valley, all these other areas, it's almost more like a meeting of ambassadors as opposed to, say, a city council where you're all elected at large and you're all representing a relatively small piece of real estate. But being chairman, I really enjoy having that whole county perspective. You know, I do agree in the idea that a rising tide will lift all boats, and hopefully anything that's going on good in North Augusta, or in Aiken, or in Wagner, or in Midland Valley is all good for the county as a whole. So what do I see going forward as some of the major things that I'm going to be focusing on? I think the first is going to be the county budget. Those who follow me in the campaign trail probably heard me talk about the budget over and over again. Budget, budget, budget. Right now, the county budget general fund's about $66 million. The weakness in it is that about $5 million of it is based on non-recurring revenues, which means that we can balance one year, but those revenues might not show up next year, so you have to try to make sure you can fill the gap. And there's always concerns with that. There's always vulnerabilities. For example, we planned on $2.4 million of this year's budget being covered by winter storm tax reimbursements from the state of South Carolina. $2.4 million. Well, turns out $1 million of that is not going to show up. Okay, so that puts us $1 million in the hole because these are non-recurring revenues that we just have no control over. Now, fortunately, it looks like because we have some very conservative fiscal discipline, we're still going to come out at the end of the year in our current forecast about on budget, but still it's something that we have to pay a lot of attention to. I think economic development is just absolutely critical across all parts of Aiken County. Will Williams is here from the Economic Development Partnership, and we work hand in glove with the EDP. Over the years, we've had very good success in terms of recruiting industries, expansions, creating both capital investment, new jobs, and thirdly, a growth in the tax base. You know, we might look and say, well, we haven't had a Bridgestone in several years. Well, you don't hit grand slams that often, but in baseball, you also win by a lot of doubles and singles and walks, and getting 50 jobs here and 120 jobs there and 20 jobs here, it all adds up. And Aiken County is actually a fairly industrialized county. When you look at all the counties across South Carolina, we have a very high proportion of good-paying industrial jobs. I do want to focus on Savannah Riverside missions because whereas we're looking at industrial jobs that are paying those good, medium living wage type jobs, a lot of the really high-paying jobs that we've lost in the area, of course, were associated with Savannah Riverside. And there's quite a few initiatives we're looking at, from the Advanced Manufacturing Collaborative Project at USC Aiken, possibly looking at the pit production mission, looking at potential cybersecurity work for the Department of Energy to come to the Savannah River site. So we are certainly looking forward to as much as we can get from there. And lastly, on economic development, which would certainly impact this community, is seeking ways to capture some of that growth in Fort Gordon over here. Chuck Smith on County Council has pointed out to me that at the NSA facility at Fort Meade, Maryland, they have something like 140 different contractors, and we'd be delighted if we had some of those contractors located here in North Augusta. And of course, some of those folks to live here, move here, because after all, North Augusta is a great place to live. A big issue coming up for the county and for the cities is going to be the Capital Project Sales Tax 4 ballot, which will be on the ballot in November. You might recall the third round was passed in 2010 with about 55% of the vote. The CPST really provides a lot of the capital funding for the county and for the cities. And to the county, it's really existential because it covers so many things that otherwise the county could not at all do. We want to make sure that we have a very tight ballot. We want to make sure that it's all truly needs and not just want-to-haves. Everything from the procurement of new road equipment to resurfacing of roads to refurbished facilities for public purposes. These are things that we need to make sure we have a good ballot. And of course, work with the cities, because there could certainly be projects where we're going to have a city component and a county component to meeting funding. Some projects are very large, and even outside of city and counties, like road work, for example, what else do you have? You got the state, you have the federal government. These things can get very, very complicated very quickly. So I think that the CPST, Capital Project Sales Tax Round 4, will be very critical and a very high agenda issue for the county and for the cities. Ongoing infrastructure projects, you might have heard that last Tuesday, I'm proud to announce that we were finally able to award the contract for the new Langley Pond Dam. This has been something that has been on the drawing boards for well over 2 years. That was a great rowing venue. We had Olympic teams train at Langley Pond, and it's kind of hard to train when it's a muddy trickle. So hopefully we'll get the dam rebuilt in the next 18 to 21 months. And when that's done, we look forward to having these folks from out of state and out of town bring their revenue and bring their boats too, and come back and train on the Langley Pond Dam. And of course, we can't forget the volunteer fire departments. I live in the city of Aiken, and of course, when you live in Aiken and North Augusta, you're used to your departments of public safety handling everything. But outside the 2 large municipalities, we have 20 different volunteer fire departments that provide that critical service for the remaining non-incorporated areas of Aiken County and the small towns too. And we are working with them. Last night we had a very, very productive meeting with the Chiefs Association to go over the new 3-year contracts with them. So there's a lot going on in Aiken County. I think these are some of the big ones I'm working on currently and going forward. So certainly would love to have a chance to meet and chat with as many of you as possible, get your inputs and ideas. But overall, let me just say it's great to be back in the saddle on the Aiken County Council, and I appreciate the invitation to speak with you this morning. So thank you all very much.
Well, good morning. It's certainly a pleasure to be here with you today, particularly at this time of year. This is one of the few times of the year where I can say with 100% confidence that the over 3,000 employees and over 25,000 students of Aiken County Public School, we are all focused on the same mission. And that's going home for Christmas. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a wonderful thing when everyone in the organization can have the same thought and the same mission. But we certainly want to extend everyone a happy holidays, and we hope that you have a safe travel if you're traveling, and that you have an opportunity to enjoy your children as much as we do every day. These are exciting times for us as a school district and as a county. You've heard magnificent things that are taking place, not only in North Augusta, but across the county as a whole. As a school district, we are focused always primarily on the process of teaching and learning. That's our number one mission. That's our priority. We want to make sure that we're doing that and we continue to grow in that regard. We have outstanding teachers, but do we have the world's best teacher in every classroom? Not yet. Not yet. And it's constant striving for us. We realize that the magic happens in our classrooms. So we have to keep at the forefront that mission and improving our process of teaching and learning every day. But in addition to that, we have some pressing issues that we've been trying to address for the last couple of months. And those two, I'll just leave 2 with you today, is preparing for the continued westward migration of our population, but then also the district's commitment to workforce development here in our growing county. The westward migration issue is one that I'm sure we're all aware of. We've had an opportunity to share that information with our community through a series of 13 town hall meetings over the past 11 months. And just to summarize it for us in a very succinct way, over the past 5 to 6 years, external demographers have shared with us that the core population of Aiken County has shifted approximately 4.5 to 5 miles to the west. Whereas in the population core, the most dense concentration of the individuals who live in this county used to be very close to the county seat right there in Aiken, in the city of Aiken. But that core has continued to shift and is moving towards the west. It's moving towards the river. It's coming this way. Now that challenges us as a school district. As we look at the projection of the number of students in our district, we will have an increase, but it won't be a rapid increase. If you look back over the past 30 years, our student population has really stayed within 100 to 200 students, right at 25,000 over the past 30 years. That's consistency. We're going to see a slight uptick in the next 10 to 12 years, but it will not be one that the demographers have shared with us that will cause us drastic concern, like the heavy growth they've seen in Evans or the heavy growth they saw in Lexington, and folks had to scramble to prepare for it. The issue that we're concerned about is not the rapid growth, but the rapid change of where students live. The rapid change. So now we're faced with a circumstance where we're having families and students move to areas where we have limited seats, but the areas that are being left behind or not growing at a rate that is as fast, we're now finding more available seats. For example, we've heard the proposition or the chance that we're going to have expansion on exit 1, exit 5. We're anticipating those things coming. Well, currently the elementary schools that sit in that area, Mossy Creek, Hammond Hill, Belvedere, all currently sit right now at 95% utilization or above. Mossy Creek's over 100%, and that's the newest school that we have in this area. So our focus right now is working as a team to determine exactly what it is we're going to do to meet the need of the westward migration first. So as we looked at those numbers, and we've done these studies internally and externally, we've been very careful not to add the proposition of, or the consideration of, cyber-impacted growth. We feel very comfortable that it's coming, but in the world of the demographer, they are very careful to say, until it happens, you can't count it. And they drew for us a very relative example of a community in our state that they were working pretty hard building some nuclear reactors and preparing for that. Well, that community's got to make some changes now. So we've been very careful in that regard. The projections that we have are just based on westward migration. But as we anticipate the impact of cyber-related growth, that just heightens our concern, knowing that we're going to have to do something, particularly in North Augusta and moving back towards Graniteville, to make sure that we have the appropriate number of seats and adequate space in our schools. But we also want to maintain our financial responsibility to the county in its entirety, because it's very hard. I think many folks will have a question of the superintendent if we're seeing we need an additional 1,000 seats here in this area, but I've got schools on the other side of the county that are at 36 or 40% utilization. It's a very comprehensive consideration for us, so we've spent a lot of time and we'll continue to spend time and gather feedback from the community on a great plan and path forward, because that's a pressing issue for us. The only other that I'll share is the district's commitment to workforce development, and that's something that we're very excited about. I like to listen to the wonderful things that are shared, not only at a panel like this, but when you talk about economic development, you talk about vitality of the community, and feel very confident that your public school district is really the cornerstone for those things. We are the source. We are the first source for that future job market. And we have to make sure that we are generalists, but also specialists. And that's not a very easy task. In our region right now, we know that we're recruiting individuals to come, businesses, job creators. We're recruiting folks to come here. In Aiken County, we are very blessed. You've heard me say on more than one occasion, we are a resource-rich county. We have a dedicated technical school. We have one of the best four-year institutions in the Southeast in our county, dedicated to serve our students first. We have an outstanding public school. We've got 10 to 13 top-tier industrial manufacturers. We've had the economic boom of Savannah Riverside that has really had a positive influence in this community for decades. But you know what? We get to do it twice, because now we have cyber on the other side. One of the few communities you'll ever find that has the footprint of the Department of Energy and the Department of Defense. It's almost an embarrassment of riches if you consider it. But we have to make sure that we are preparing students not only for the pending cyber opportunities, but I'm gonna tell you folks, we have outstanding opportunities for students in industrial manufacturing. We have outstanding opportunities for students in that energy arena. We have outstanding opportunities for students as it relates to healthcare. There are pressing workforce development needs comprehensively in our county and in this region. So yes, we're going to gear up and prepare students to address these cyber jobs when they come. That's where we have to be specialists. But we also have to be generalists to make sure that any graduate who leaves our school district leaves with a set of employable skills. Because there are outstanding vocations, well-paying jobs for students not in the cyber industry, but have a tremendous impact to what's going on in our comprehensive county. So that's enough for us as a school district to think about, especially over the next 3 days until we can say, please go home, be safe, open up gifts, and we'll see you back at the new year. I'm going to yield the rest of my time to the Honorable Mayor Bob Pettit. Thank you.
I'm never accustomed to hearing the Honorable as part of my name, so it takes me a long time to catch. And I think Tara made a wise decision in keeping the Army and the Air Force at opposite ends of the table. You know, this is a pleasure to be here and to have an opportunity to speak to people that are making things happen in this area. And for that, I thank you for what you do for this area, because you are a critical part, the critical part of this area. You know, today's topic is about what's happened in 2017 and what the challenges and opportunities are for next year. You know, I grew up watching Yogi Berra play for the Yankees. You know, he said things that make you scratch your head. And my favorite is, when you come to a fork in the road, take it. And so in Yogi's honor, I've titled my presentation, Take the Fork in the Road. And my subtitle is Gateway to Tomorrow, because that's what we're really talking about. And I'm only going to hit the highlights. I'm going to try and talk fast, so it's up to you to listen fast. I'll start with probably the biggest thing that's on people's minds is Riverside Village. I'll talk about where we are and where we're going to go. Quick recap, we sold the bonds in May of this past year, $69 million or so. Formal groundbreaking for the stadium was in May 25th. And opening day is 4 months away. There's a lot that has to be done in the next 4 months. Things that will be completed by opening day. First, and it's the obvious one, is the stadium. Without that, we're not. The right field restaurant and microbrewery will be completed. The left field building that you see when you drive across the bridge now, where they're forming the concrete floor. It's certainly going to have the shell built. Whether or not the interior apartments will be completely built out or not, I don't know. But it's a critical part of the stadium. And the hotel parking deck will be completed by opening day. Some things will not be ready on opening day, but they are currently under construction, and that's the apartments. You may have seen some of the drone shots of the apartments and how fast they're going up. And the hotel construction is underway. Still not started are the retail establishments. You know, they have the condos, some of them overhead, and some of them have apartments. The senior living facility hasn't started. I think we're close on getting that finally approved in the development. And the stadium parking deck will not be ready by opening day, and that's presenting a challenge. Riverview Park, I'm hopeful, will be completed by opening day. We're in the process of having design reviews on that. I asked the design team to make sure that Riverview Park has a wow factor. I've come to find out that a wow factor is expensive. What's ahead for Riverview Park and Riverview Village in 2018? From a city standpoint, my attention is focused on making sure that the revenue streams that were projected are on track. Right now, we're running a little bit ahead as we would have hoped for and expected. We have to make the bond payments, and quite honestly, I and council seem to be getting a lot of help on people interested in helping us evaluate and make sure the revenue streams are adequate. Probably the biggest thing to happen in North Augusta in 2017 was the retirement of Mayor Lark Jones. He was mayor for 20 years, and the timing of his retirement got me. The jury's out. 6 months. Dr. Alford talked about teaching and learning. I do very little teaching, but I'm doing a heck of a lot of learning. And I've just barely begun to understand what's important. I do know that the city employees are a great team. I've discovered they're one deep in most areas. So when you have a vacancy, they're having to do another person's job. But they believe, as I believe, and as I've talked to them, their number one purpose is service. Without anything else to think about, it's service to the citizens of this city. And I emphasize that to them all the time, so much that they're tired of me mentioning it. One of the big things we did, I think, in my tenure was getting the budget passed. And for the first time in 25 years, it included, as part of it, an increase in the property tax, modest one, and we raised the hospitality back to the level it was in 1998, 2%. Interesting enough, the hospitality tax raises a lot more money for the city than the property tax increase did. We included, again, money for the capital projects fund, and if you look at it, the 0.5 mils we put to that is a modest $45,000 to $50,000. Very little impact. Some other thing I think that's been most amazing is the development that's occurred at Exit 5. It's just gone crazy. We have a Holiday Inn Express there now, which opened, and that's a great addition to the capabilities we have in that area. The Wendy's, Dairy Queen, car wash, a new gas station's going up across the street. It's just phenomenal. And when you think about Exit 5, Exit 1 sits there as an opportunity. DOT is involved in widening the bridge across the canal and the Savannah River, and so we're trying to make sure that the change at Interchange 1 is conducive to development. You can't expect somebody to build something if they can't get people into it. So it's going to be complicated, something we have to worry about. We're starting to see infill development. That seems to be the big term to the planners these days, is infill, and you see it with the construction of the IHOP and Aspen Dental building, and we hope to see a lot more of that because the community is important, and if you can get to things very conveniently, that makes the city and the community that much more livable and enjoyable for the people here. I had, probably for the first time in people's memory, a town hall meeting where I invited the citizens to come and ask me anything that was on their mind. I knew I didn't have all the answers, so I had some extra experts with me, but it was very, very good. We had over 100 people attend. I had a diverse variety of questions. We were able to answer them, and those we couldn't, we got back to them. Now, what are the challenges for 2018? Yogi Berra said you don't have to swing hard to hit a homer. If you've got the timing right, it'll go. Well, we're at the point, I think, where it's time. I talked often about a vision for North Augusta. What is North Augusta's vision? Circumstances and maybe my own failure to lead at that point, we've not yet accomplished that. But I have a plan that early next year, hopefully early February, we will get that process started following the council's planning session that we're going to have, and start understanding what it is the citizens of North Augusta expect and want the city to be. You know, downtown revitalization has been talked about for a long time. Hopefully, we'll be able to build on Riverside Village growth. You know, there have been commitments of property owners to renovate their buildings. We have space now that's available for leasing for businesses. Your Pie has been very, very successful, so I'm hopeful that people will be a part of that. And we also have another very serious possibility that we're in talks about, and I obviously can't tell you what it is, but I'm very hopeful that it comes to fruition. Everybody talks about cyber growth. I've talked about it for 6 months. I think it's time I did something about it. I found out that talking about it is one heck of a lot easier than being a part of it. Because as a city, we have to provide the opportunities and the circumstances and the facilities for people to come and want to come. You know, Georgia invested $100 million, a stone's throw from here. South Carolina is trying to transition its mindset from the industrial development support to non-industrial business support. You know, if you want to build an office building, that's as important to cyber, certainly, as anything else. You've got to have offices for people. So we're trying to transition the mindset, or be a part of the transition of the mindset of our state government, to recognize that economic development is more than just industrial opportunities. So we're working to get additional office space, and particularly as part of Riverview Village, and looking at other opportunities. And it's a three-pronged stool that Todd Glover has pointed out to me as an example. Dr. Alford talked about the educational component. We're ahead of the game, starting in our elementary and high schools. And we have the technical school, and obviously USC Aiken as well. That's important. Workforce development is important. If you expect businesses to come, you've got to have people that can be a part of that business. And I applaud our educational groups, or whatever you call yourself, Dr. Alford, for your commitment to that. Without people, we're nothing. And so that's a major, major, major component. I'll talk a couple of minutes more. Something that's very much on my mind is the lock and dam. Gary, I think it was you that talked about a muddy trickle.
Right.
We don't want to look out at a muddy trickle on our riverfront. You know, the lock and dam was deauthorized by Congress in the Wind Act a couple of years ago. A couple of requirements were in there that they maintain the pool elevation and that they provide enough water for our water supply. North Augusta, and 7 or 8 industries currently draw their water supply from the Savannah River, so that has to be maintained. They talked about a rock weir being across the river. Hopefully that the fish that no longer will be able to spawn because of the deepening of the Savannah Harbor will be able to swim up over that rock weir. My concern is that if they construct the rock weir and maintain the existing pool elevation, our residential flooding will likely increase. And I'm adamantly opposed to that. I've spent a lot of time talking in Washington about that issue, and I think that's the major concern with the change that's under the Wind Act. And also, if you put a rock weir across the river, that totally precludes any future opportunities for navigation from our area downriver and back. I mean, then we're just kind of what it was before they put the canal in with the rapids. You can only go so far, and this is the terminus. We have congressional support for our efforts to retain the lock and dam. Congressman Wilson, thank you for your support. And also Congressman Rick Allen across the river is also an active supporter of that. Gary talked about the capital project sales tax reauthorization. That's huge. We need that to be approved. We're going to ask for your support in getting that done. It's a county-wide initiative, but we have need a new fire station on top of the hill the Chief talked about, and also a new fire station, public safety headquarters. Residential development has been good in North Augusta, but in my opinion, in the next 4 years or so, it's going to be dramatic. There's talks now of a huge new development being put in, going to provide opportunities for the schools, get parks, and a large number of residences. So look forward to that announcement sometime in the future. And I guess the last thing that I'll mention for challenges in 2018, and maybe this is a personal thing and not the city, but operating in today's social media environment is challenging. And quite honestly, we haven't figured out how to operate in that environment, and we don't really have the people to help us get our message out, things that we're doing to let the people in the area know what we're planning, what we're working on, and be proactive in that regard. Frustrates me every day, but it's something that we've got to solve, and I don't think I'm unique in that area. I'm sure everyone here would have that same problem. I'm going to finish with one more Yogi Berra quote. The future ain't what it used to be. And, you know, the future for North Augusta isn't what it used to be either. I think it's bigger, it's brighter, and it's better. And, you know, working together with you, who are the engine for this development and growth, I think together we can make it be better and be what we hope it will be. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Let's give our panel another round of applause. And before I go into our door prizes, I'd like to thank our sponsors, our presenting sponsor today, the Star, for allowing us to have this program, as well as our series sponsors for the year. So let's give them a round of applause.